Griffin, Shabbat Shalom. Wow, and thank you. You have brought us an incredibly deep and rich reading of your Torah portion today. You have shown our community and also our sixth graders not to shy away from any topic presented by the Torah that is compelling to you. In fact, one might say that this is what it means to become a Jewish adult upon becoming a bar mitzvah. That any topic that the Torah presents, it is yours to wrestle with, if you are willing to do so. Even more importantly, Griffin, you have taken a text that has caused so much pain and exclusion for so many, whose communities grant authority to the Bible. And you have given us a powerful model for how to contend with those texts that we find morally reprehensible. Later, I would like to share my reflections on that model specifically and related the process by which you crafted your Devar Torah, which I was so honored to be a part of. But for now, I would like to start with this week's Torah portion. As Rabbi Green noted earlier, there has been an interesting phenomenon in this year of rescheduled B'nai Mitzvahs, in which we hear our students read and discuss their original Torah portion on a new date, which has its own Torah portion. Therefore, today we got to hear Griffin's wisdom about Parashat Kedoshim in the book of Leviticus, while the Jewish calendar is on Parashat Ki Tisa in the book of Exodus. And so we have two Torah teachings that would not otherwise be paired, and in so doing, we get to hear chidushim, new interpretations or connections because of those matches. It is perhaps one of the silver linings of this challenging and difficult year. Parashat Ki Tisa contains what is one of the most significant episodes in the ancient narrative of the Jewish people, the golden calf. In it, the Israelites are waiting for Moses as he ascends Mount Sinai to receive the revelation. When he does not appear at what they thought was the appointed time, they become incredibly worried and anxious. Rashi relates that their world had suddenly become confusing and disorderly, and they feared that Moses was dead. So they turned to Aaron and asked him to make a god that will go before us. Aaron then solicits the golden jewelry of the people and melts it down, forming what we have come to term the golden calf. They rejoice in it, they declare a festival, offer sacrifices, dance, and revel. They were relieved to have resolved their angst, relieved to have once again located a visible and tangible and obvious focus there in the wilderness. The episode continues to be held up as the example of the dangers of idolatry, of trusting in something that only appears to be true, of putting faith in something that is obvious and easy, instead of that which is more complex and intangible, of jumping to an easy answer, instead of cultivating patience and confidence. So here, Griffin, I want to share the story of when we first started working together almost exactly 1 year ago, because I think that this life lesson from Ki Tisa is one that you have internalized. Last March, we had 2 meetings, and then the world turned upside down. When we first started studying together, you read these verses about mixing and categorizing and separating and delineating, about which types of combinations and relationships, another type of combination, were sacred and not sacred. And you found the whole thing entirely foreign. Originally, you wanted to speak about how the concept itself was wrong. You were prepared to dismiss these verses, and you had real and valid concerns about the Torah condemning a whole group of people, in your words. These verses shouted out bigotry and intolerance and revealed to you a mindset of a text that condoned exclusion and rejection. And that was where we left things in March of 2020. We didn't pick up again until this past December, when the dust had settled and you had arrived at your new date. When we came back to our process, how things had changed. Unlike the ancient Israelites, you were patient and confident. You sought to go beyond what was earlier for you the obvious and easy answer, and you looked for the substantive truth that resided underneath the truth that was visible on the surface. You were intellectually courageous in your pursuit of this topic, in your willingness to enter the mindset of the Bible and of the medieval commentaries, mindsets which are so very different from our own today. You gave us a window into our tradition of commentary. You were creative and open in your ability to draw out what was redeemable, and you also named what for you was not redeemable. You responded with respect for our tradition as it stands, and you agreed to disagree. At the same time, you drew our attention to a way of contending with morally reprehensible aspects of our tradition by showing how the attitudes of serious thinkers have evolved over time, incorporating different concerns and broader points of view. You also demonstrated how challenging texts are situated in the larger context of a Torah and a Jewish Bible that you found to be ultimately concerned with the dignity and humanity of all human beings. You were confident that when your understanding of Judaism and Torah seemed to clash with specific texts, that the voice of the principle of B'Tselem Elohim, that all humans are created in the image of God, was the most beautiful and resonant voice in the room. I think you give hope and courage to those who would rightfully fear to be a part of a community that reads this text by showing that the volume of the harmful text can be adjusted by those reading it, and also that the consequences of the text depend greatly on who is reading it and what they do with it. In just a moment, we will see an old picture of you with your family, helping a Torah scribe write a letter of Torah in a scroll, taken where you were standing a moment ago. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this picture shows just one example of how your parents have made an effort throughout your childhood to ensure that you and Declan would cultivate a deep connection to the Jewish community. You have been regular attendees at Shabbat morning services for years. You have sung at the Purim Spiel and at the High Holiday services. Declan traveled to Israel with me on CBE's 8th grade trip, and I know that you, Griffin, will get to do the same one day as well. By regular and intentional involvement, you have developed a relationship with Judaism that is strong and solid and unshakable. And you have done so in a community that has been at the forefront of the pursuit of justice and also the cultivation of love. The scribe helped you to write in the Torah when you were younger. Today, you write your own Torah, inspiring us to face even the most difficult moral challenges with patience and confidence, depth and courage. Shabbat Shalom.